This is you. You were born in a village so small it doesn't exist on any map. A frozen speck in the Siberian wilderness where winter lasts 9 months and hope lasts even less. Your father was a hunter who could drop a wolf at 400 meters with an old Mosin rifle. Your mother died giving birth to you, making you cursed in the eyes of the superstitious villagers. They whisper that you came into this world taking a life and that death has followed you ever since. They aren't wrong. By the time you're 7, your father teaches you to shoot, not for sport, but for survival. Miss your target and the family doesn't eat. He makes you hold the rifle until your arms shake and your fingers turn blue. He makes you lie motionless in the snow for hours, watching, waiting, learning that patience is the difference between a full belly and starvation. You hate him for it. You don't understand that he's preparing you for a war that hasn't started yet. When you're 12, your father doesn't come back from a hunting trip. You find his body 3 days later, frozen solid at the base of a ravine. His rifle is still clutched in his stiff hands. You pry it from his fingers, and something inside you hardens into ice. From that day forward, you hunt alone. You provide for yourself. You trust no one. The years pass in brutal solitude. You become a ghost in the taiga, surviving winters that would kill grown men twice your size. By the time you're 19, you can hit a rabbit's eye at 300 meters. You can read the wind by watching how snow falls from branches. You can stay motionless for so long that birds land on your shoulders thinking you're a dead tree. Then, in June of 1941, the Germans invade. The war comes to your village not with tanks or planes, but with a piece of paper, a conscription notice. You're to report to the nearest recruitment center immediately. You pack your father's rifle and begin the long walk east. You don't look back. There's nothing to look back at. Basic training is a joke to you. While the city boys struggle to hit targets at 100 meters, you're putting rounds through the same hole at triple that distance. The drill sergeants notice. They pull you aside and ask where you learned to shoot like that. You tell them your father taught you. They ask if he was military. You tell them he was a hunter. They exchange looks you don't understand. 3 weeks later, you're transferred to a special unit, sniper school. The instructors are hard men with cold eyes who have already killed more Germans than they can count. They teach you things your father never knew. Ballistics tables, range estimation, camouflage techniques using local vegetation, how to control your heartbeat so it doesn't throw off your aim, how to time your shots between breaths. But the most important lesson isn't technical, it's psychological. An old sergeant with a scar running from his ear to his chin sits you down one night. He tells you that killing a man through a scope is different from killing in battle. In battle, there's chaos, noise, adrenaline. Your brain doesn't have time to process what you're doing. But through a scope, you see everything. You see the target scratch his nose. You see him pull out a photo, probably of his wife or kids. You see him laugh at something his friend said, and then you see his head explode. He asks you if you can handle that. You think about your father's frozen body. You think about the wolves you've killed, watching the life drain from their eyes. You tell the sergeant you can handle anything. He looks at you for a long moment, then he nods and says you might actually survive this war. Your first deployment is Stalingrad. The city is already a corpse when you arrive, a skeleton of collapsed buildings and smoking rubble stretching to the horizon. The Volga River runs red some days. The smell of death is so thick you can taste it. This is where the German advance will be stopped or the Soviet Union will fall. There is no third option. They assign you a spotter, a nervous kid from Moscow named Petrov who talks too much and shakes when the artillery hits close. You don't like him. You don't like anyone, but you need him to call distances and watch your back, so you tolerate his presence. Your first kill comes on a gray October morning, a German officer standing in a window surveying the battlefield with binoculars. Distance, 487 meters. Wind, slight crosswind from the east. You adjust your scope, control your breathing, and wait for the space between heartbeats. The rifle kicks against your shoulder. A half-second later, the officer drops. You feel nothing. No triumph, no guilt, no rush of adrenaline. Just the cold satisfaction of a job completed. You cycle the bolt, eject the spent casing, and scan for the next target. Petrov stares at you like you're some kind of monster. Maybe you are. The kills start adding up. 5, 10, 20. The Germans learn to fear certain sectors of the city, areas where their officers keep dying from invisible bullets. They call you the Siberian Ghost. They put a bounty on your head, 10,000 Reichsmarks dead or alive. You take this as a compliment. But the Germans aren't stupid. They send their own snipers to hunt you, elite marksmen from their mountain divisions, men who have trained their whole lives for this exact kind of warfare. The city becomes a deadly chess game played at 500 meters. Your first duel happens in November. You spot the glint of a scope in a destroyed factory across the street. A German sniper has set up position, probably hunting for you specifically. You have two choices: wait him out or bait him. Waiting could take days. You don't have days. The front line is moving. You tell Petrov to raise his helmet on a stick. It's the oldest trick in the book, but sometimes the old tricks work. The German fires immediately, punching a hole through the helmet. Amateur. The muzzle flash gives away his position exactly. You put a bullet through his scope. The round travels straight through the glass, through his eye, and out the back of his skull. You learn later that he was a decorated marksman with 53 confirmed kills. You feel nothing but mild irritation that he fell for such a basic trap. The duels get harder after that. The Germans send better hunters, men who don't fall for helmet tricks, men who can lie motionless for 18 hours waiting for a single shot, men who understand that in this game, patience isn't just a virtue, it's the only thing keeping you alive. You adapt. You start using decoys, mannequins dressed in Soviet uniforms, positioned in windows with rifles propped on sandbags. You create false muzzle flashes using mirrors and small explosive charges. You set up in positions so unlikely that no one thinks to check them, lying in piles of frozen corpses for hours because the dead provide perfect cover. Your kill count climbs past 100, then 150, then 200. The political officers start bringing journalists to interview you. They want to turn you into a propaganda symbol, proof that Soviet soldiers are superior to the fascist invaders. You hate these interviews. You hate smiling for cameras. You hate pretending that killing is something to celebrate, but you do it because the party demands it, and refusing the party is suicide. One journalist asks you what goes through your mind when you pull the trigger. You tell her the truth. Nothing. She looks disturbed. She writes something different in her article, something about righteous fury against the Nazi invaders. You don't bother correcting her. Let people believe what they want. Winter hits Stalingrad with brutal force. Temperatures drop to -40, rifle oil freezes, fingers turn black with frostbite. Men die not from bullets but from the cold itself, found frozen solid in their foxholes come morning. But you've survived Siberian winters your whole life. This is nothing. The Germans, though, they're suffering. Their supply lines are cut. Their summer uniforms are worthless against the cold. You watch through your scope as they huddle around fires, burning furniture, burning books, burning anything to stay alive. Part of you almost feels pity. Then you remember what they did to the villages they captured, the mass graves, the burned churches, the women and children shot in ditches, and the pity dies. You kill 23 Germans in 1 week that December. Most of them are officers trying to maintain order among freezing, starving troops. Without officers, units fall apart. Without units, armies collapse. You aren't just killing men, you're dismantling a war machine one bullet at a time. Then the Soviets launch their counteroffensive, Operation Uranus. 2 massive pincers slam into the German flanks and meet behind them, trapping 300,000 enemy soldiers in a frozen pocket of hell. The hunters have become the hunted. Your mission changes. Now you're hunting not just officers, but anyone trying to escape the encirclement. For weeks you lie in the snow outside the pocket, picking off Germans attempting to flee west. They stumble through the drifts, half dead from starvation and cold, and you drop them one by one. It feels less like combat and more like culling sick animals. In February, the Germans in Stalingrad surrender. 91,000 prisoners march into captivity. Most will never see Germany again. The city is liberated, though liberated is a strange word for a place that's been reduced to rubble and ash. Your official kill count stands at 243. They give you medals. They call you a hero of the Soviet Union. They put your face on posters. You are the deadliest sniper in the Red Army, maybe in the entire war. But the war isn't over. Not even close. They send you west with the advancing armies. Poland, Hungary, Austria, Germany itself. The killing continues. Different cities, different ruins, same scope, same trigger, same cold mathematics of death. Your count passes 300, then 350. Each kill blurs into the next. A single endless nightmare stretching across a continent. Petrov dies outside Budapest. A German shell lands directly on his position while you're away checking a different vantage point. You find what's left of him scattered across 20 meters of frozen mud. You don't cry. They assign you a new spotter, then another when that one dies, then another. You stop learning their names. There's no point getting attached to dead men walking. In April of 1945, you reach Berlin. The final battle. The Nazi capital is a fortress of fanatical defenders, old men and young boys fighting with the desperation of the doomed. The Soviets throw everything at them: artillery, tanks, infantry, aircraft. The city burns. You set up in the ruins of an apartment building overlooking a major intersection. German reinforcements have to cross this point to reach the front line. For 3 days, you don't move, don't eat, barely breathe. You just watch and shoot. Your final count in Berlin alone is 47. On May 2nd, the Reichstag falls. The war in Europe is over. You stand in the rubble of Hitler's capital, surrounded by celebrating soldiers, and you feel absolutely nothing. No joy, no relief, no sense of accomplishment, just emptiness. Your official count is 429 confirmed kills. The real number is probably higher, but many couldn't be verified. They call you the deadliest sniper of the war. They parade you through Moscow. Stalin himself pins a medal on your chest. But here's the thing about being a weapon. Once the war ends, nobody knows what to do with you. They offer you a training position, teaching the next generation of snipers. You try it for 6 months, but every time you look through a scope, you see faces. German faces, Russian faces, faces of men you've killed and men you've watched die. The ghosts are catching up. You start drinking, vodka at first, then anything you can get your hands on. The alcohol dulls the memories but sharpens the nightmares. You wake up screaming, reaching for a rifle that isn't there. One night, drunk and stumbling through Moscow, you pass a building with music drifting from an open window. Someone is playing piano. The melody is hauntingly beautiful, something classical you don't recognize. You stop and listen for what feels like hours. The next morning, you take your medals to a pawn shop. You trade them for an old guitar with broken strings. It's a stupid impulse. You don't know how to play, but you remember your father once saying that music is the only thing that makes silence bearable. You spend the next year teaching yourself. Your fingers, trained for triggers, slowly learn chords. The calluses that protected you from rifle recoil now come from steel strings. It's painful and frustrating, and you're terrible at it. But for the first time since 1941, you feel something other than cold. Eventually, you move to a small village in the Ural Mountains, far from cities, far from crowds, far from anything that reminds you of war. You build a cabin with your own hands. You grow vegetables. You play guitar badly for an audience of nobody. Sometimes local kids come by. They've heard rumors about the old man in the hills, the war hero, the legendary sniper. They ask you to tell stories about the fighting, about your kills, about glory and victory. You tell them there was no glory, only survival, only doing terrible things so that others could live. You tell them that every life you took was a failure of diplomacy, a failure of humanity, a failure of the whole damn species to figure out how to exist without murdering each other. They don't understand. They're too young. Maybe one day they will. On quiet nights, you sit on your porch with the guitar and look up at the stars. You think about the 429 men whose lives you ended. You wonder about their families, their dreams, the children they never got to raise, the music they never got to hear. You realize that you'll carry them forever, every single one, ghosts riding on your shoulders until the day you die. But maybe that's okay. Maybe carrying the dead is the price of survival. Maybe the weight is what keeps you human. You play a chord, then another. The sound drifts into the cold night air, mixing with the wind through the pines. For the first time in decades, you almost feel at peace. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I love making this content for you guys, but I could really do with the support to keep me motivated to make these immersive style videos. Stay tuned for the next one.